stars in my eyes. My rock sweeter, meet the one I love. I don't know how, don't know why. I'm toasting all my life. Oh, it's sweeter. I've been toasting all my life.
Welcome to Phillip Island, Victoria in Australia. What a setting we have for this great sporting contest, the Little Penguin Sea to Dune race. Nervous moments always as they gather on the beach, the tension mounting, and away they go. There's the defending champion, wearing his familiar navy blue and white, great waddling style. Another pre-race favourite though, losing touch with the pack. Maybe that's why. A few too many fish in the day's feeding. There's a familiar face, Skip McIntyre, 8 times a champion back in the 90s, a very successful coach now, keeping a keen eye on proceedings. This the leading group, 1 or 2 still able to put on a show for the camera, others just ploughing straight over it. Some resorting to shortcuts. Sad that cheating has crept into this beautiful sport. The judges will have a look at that. But up at the front, the pace is relentless, closing in on those sand dunes that will offer a bed for the night. The fatigue starting to tell. Who's got the finishing kick up on the outside? What a turn of pace from that one, whichever one it is. No answer from the rest, and he takes victory. What a win. There we are, into the Burrow, building an extension with his winnings, and back tomorrow to try and defend his title here on Phillip Island.
All right, good evening everybody and welcome to Live Penguin TV. My name's Sky, but I am not your host for tonight. Your host is actually going to be Ranger Stephen tonight, and he's accompanied by Ranger Rachel. But I've hijacked the stream because I've got some special guests just above me there who I really want to introduce you to. So next to me I have got Coco. Give the camera a wave, Coco. And I have got Rachel. Give the camera a wave, Rachel. And they are visiting us from Australian charity Children First Foundation. And they have come to Australia. Coco is from Papua New Guinea and Rachel is from Zambia. And they have come to Australia for some life-changing surgeries that couldn't be done in their home countries. And they're both about to head back home to their home countries because the surgeries are all done. They've gone really well. And so for a bit of celebration, and because it was Coco's birthday yesterday, they've come down to Phillip Island Nature Parks to have a little look around. And they've been watching Penguin Live TV since the very beginning. So let's have a little bit of a chat to Coco and Rachel and hear about their day here at Nature Parks. So there's been a small group of children today. It's not just you two, there's a few of you. And but I can see that you're both wearing some pretty interesting clothes. What clothes are you wearing, you guys? It looks a bit like what I'm wearing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks the same. It's a Phillip Island Nature Parks uniform, isn't it? Yeah. So show them your ranger badges. Show your ranger badges to the camera. Yeah, there you go. You got one on both sides. Yeah, there we go. You're both rangers for the day. So there's your badge. Rangers for the day. They've done a Ranger for the Day program. So Coco, perhaps you could tell us, or tell everybody, tell the camera, what are some of the things you've done for your Ranger for the Day program?
Went seeing some koalas and learning new things about the koalas. Only few people know, and putting fox poo out for the dogs.
Hang on, wait a second. Putting fox poo out for the dogs? What do you mean?
For the dogs, like they unfox, they smell the poo.
Yeah.
And that's how they find the fox.
Wonderful. So they've been doing a little bit with our fox detection dogs, putting out some poo, fox poo for the dogs so that they chase after it. Wasn't that cool? And learning a bit about koalas. What else have you done, Rachel? What else have you done?
Well, we've walked around the sea. We've seen some penguins even before they came out, and saw some snakes. Yeah.
Saw a snake?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, where was the snake?
It was just next to the penguin house. Yeah, it's a house. So.
And can I tell you, everybody, I would never have spotted that snake. Both of these guys have been fantastic rangers today. Coco's got a great eye for spotting koalas. And you know what he said to me? Tell him what you said to me.
It's easy.
It's easy. It's easy spotting koalas, he said, even though they're grey, in a grey tree blending in. He's like, oh yeah, it's easy. There's a koala. And yeah, as I said, Rachel found this snake that was absolutely impossible to see. So we really do have some true rangers in the making here with Rachel and Coco. So both of you, what's your favourite part of the day so far?
I like dogs, they're really nice. And even the koalas. The ones sit really close. We sit really close. And yeah, planting some grass.
Oh, planting some grass. So you also did some planting as well. Important job for a ranger to do. Fantastic, that was fun. Did you enjoy jumping on the shovel?
Not really.
Oh, not really. How about you, Rachel?
Well, I've enjoyed to watch the wave and to see the koalas, how they sleep the whole day, and sporting koalas, yeah, and the dog as well.
The dog as well. Yeah, we saw some big crashing waves too. It's been a pretty adventurous day, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But we haven't even seen the main event because we're still yet to see the main penguin parade. So you pretty excited about the penguin parade?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you reckon that'll be the best bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think our Wattle watchers would agree that the penguins are the big highlight. I think so too. All right. So what do you like about penguins so much? What is it about these little things that you enjoy?
Just want to hug it.
You just want to hug it?
Yes.
How about you, Coco? What do you like about them?
I like how they walk and they're really cute, but you can't hold one in real life.
Yeah, so they're really cute, but yes, we've been saying that you can't actually hold them because, of course, if you did hug one, do you know what would happen, Rachel?
No.
It would bite you, it would try and get away from you, it would poo on you.
What if you wear something protective and then hold it and then you hug it?
She's really thought this through, hasn't she? She really wants to hug that penguin. Oh, not tonight, unfortunately. All right, so we're about to head on down to the penguins to see them, but I've just got one last little question. So, Coco, you're from Papua New Guinea, but you're here in Australia. So can you tell us a little about what has brought you to Australia?
It's about my leg.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I've been here 3 times, and I was here in 2015. They have to do a surgery on my leg, and then I went home, but the leg was too short, so I came back in 2017, and then they lengthened it, and then I went home again. I was playing basketball, and then I broke it again. So now I'm back.
Yeah, now you're back again. So I believe this is Coco's 3rd time in Australia, 3rd surgery here in Australia, and it seems like it's gone really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just about to be heading home, which must be such a relief. Must be excited to see your friends and family.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And how about you, Rachel? You're from Zambia, so what's brought you to Australia?
Well, I came here for surgery as well, because my leg was my 2 legs. Basically, it's the right leg was shorter than the other one, so they had to lengthen it and put some external fixation so that my leg would be lengthened. I came in 2018, and it's 2 years now. So
Wow.
my legs are of the same length, and I'm ready to go home now.
Yep, so with 2 legs the same length, you're ready to go home after
Yes.
2 years. Isn't that an incredible story, everybody? And how has the Australian charity Children First Foundation helped for both of you? Coco first.
The people are kind, and like they look after us, like really nice. I think the people is really nice. The
Yeah.
volunteers and the staffs.
Yeah, wonderful. So Children First Foundation has brought you to Australia, has helped you with the surgery, helped you with the physiotherapy, and looked after you. The staff are really nice. The volunteers are really nice. Fantastic. How about for you, Rachel?
I think Coco has said it already. I'm just gonna add more. Like, they are so nice. They make sure they'll be there for you when you're in the hospital. You come out, they're there for you. Whether you're in pain or not, they'll make sure before you go home you're free and you're not in any pain. So it's very nice to be around them. They make us to get healed very quick because they are caring and loving.
Oh, that's lovely. So thank goodness for organisations like Children First, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, they've done a wonderful job with Coco and Rachel here, and I think you're going to miss them a lot when you head home soon. Oh, yeah, it's going to be sad. All right, but no time for sadness anymore because it is penguin time. It is penguin time for us all. So Coco, Rachel and I are going to head off. We are going to head down to the stands and we are going to watch these penguins crossing the beach in real life. The rest of you, I believe you're going to be back to the stream as normal. Ranger Stephen and Ranger Rachel are on their way, but it is going to have to be just a little bit of a clunky changeover while we leave the room so that they can come back in. So you're just going to have to excuse us as we do this slightly awkward spot. It's lovely to see you all. I will see you again on the weekend, but I will be handing it now over to Ranger Stephen and Ranger Rachel. Good night, everybody. All right, let's go, you guys. Bye.
Have fun tonight, guys. Have a great night, guys. Oh, hello, everybody. Let me take my mask off.
Hi guys.
Oh, there we go. Welcome again to Penguin Live TV. I'm sure Sky has done all the introductions already, but I'm here to take over. I'll be your main host for the night. My name's Steven, and joining me we've got Rachel, and she's on camera for the first time, so send Rachel your love in the comments, and make sure you give her some good questions so she can ask me, and if I don't know any of those difficult questions, the answers to those difficult questions, maybe I'll throw them over to you, Rachel, and you'll see if you'll be able to answer them tonight.
Okay.
So, yeah, thanks for joining us, Rachel. It's
Thank you,
going to be a
Stephen.
lot of fun, and hopefully we'll see lots of penguins tonight. So welcome to Penguin Live TV. And as you can see, we're looking across the Summerlands Beach, and we've got quite a few people on the stands. Lots of lovely things happening. Lots of people here, really excited to see the penguins. You saw Coco and you saw Rachel, who are here, and they're getting a bit of a special private tour themselves with Ranger Sky. And hopefully they're going to see some penguins. Now, I hope the penguins aren't here just yet. I'd like for Coco and Rachel to be able to get down to the stands to see them up close and personal. There's something very special about seeing that first group of penguins on the water's edge. I do want to give a big welcome back to all of our return viewers, the Waddle Watchers, who are here almost every single night watching our penguins. We do appreciate you coming in every night, leaving those really nice comments, asking those amazing questions that you do. And I do want to do a big welcome to any new viewers who might be tuning in for the first time tonight. We are here at the Penguin Parade, a part of on Phillip Island. And we're part of the Phillip Island Nature Parks. We're a not-for-profit organization. And we're a conservation organization. So all of the profits we do make from the sales of tickets or maybe merchandise, it's going back into helping our little penguins. And the little penguins are the species of penguins that are coming out of the ocean tonight. Last night they came out at, what was the time last night, Rachel? Do you remember?
8:51.
8:51. Thanks, Rachel. And how many did we get last night?
We've got 1,216.
Lovely. 1,216 penguins last night. That is fantastic. How good is that? Maybe we'll get a similar number tonight. So every night we count our penguins, which is just great. I'm going to show you the skybox where our penguin counter is sitting. Now, who's counting tonight? I'll have to listen over the radio to see who it is. We've got a couple of orange rangers down on the stands over there. They are getting ready to count our penguins. The one in the skybox is going to be in charge of counting most of our penguins. And on that far stand in the middle of the camera, you might see an orange ranger on that far stand. They will be counting the penguins on the farthest pathway away from us. We usually don't see them here on Live Penguin TV. Our cameras have difficulty getting them into focus, being that they're so far away. We're lucky enough to have the biggest pathway right in front of us. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, all the ticket sales that you've seen of people on those stands, those profits are going back into helping our penguins, back into helping a lot of native species here on Phillip Island. And while we're talking about Phillip Island, I do want to take this moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Bunurong, and pay my respects to their elders, both past, present, and emerging. And the Bunurong would call Phillip Island Malal. So I want to say a big Womanjika to Malal, welcome to Phillip Island. And maybe leave in a comment for us, letting us know who the traditional custodians of the land where you are viewing from would be. Because there's quite a few traditional custodians all across Australia. And the Bunurong happen to have visited Phillip Island historically over the last millennia. Fantastic. I don't see any penguins yet. I'm scanning around. Haven't seen any rafts just yet. Maybe let us know in the comments if you've spotted a raft of penguins. I'm sure Rachel can jump in and let me know if I've missed one.
Haven't seen any yet.
No worries. It's still quite bright outside. It's 8:43 local time here in Australia. Last night our penguins came out at 8:51, so we might have another 5, maybe even 10 minutes left to wait. The penguins, they come out of the ocean when they are ready. They never tell us when they want to come home. They come out whenever they feel safe. Because in the daytime, our penguins do have predators who are flying around, the big birds of prey, that happen to think penguins are quite tasty. And our penguins are quite clever little birds. They know it's not safe to come out of the ocean until the sun has set. So they are waiting for that sun to go down. I'm wondering if that's a group of penguins in the distance over there. It's really far away. Maybe not. Thought I saw some movement over there. Might just be some darker waves. That looks like a raft to me, but it's just not quite right. Unlucky. But anyways, when our penguins are feeling safe and secure, they will come to the water's edge. They'll hesitate on the water's edge usually and look around, making sure the coast is clear, and eventually they'll try for a dangerous dash across the beach. And as you can see, the tide is quite low tonight. I believe low tide was at 8 p.m., so it's coming in a little bit, but it's only just started to turn. So our penguins have quite a long crossing tonight. And that's good news for us. It means we get to watch our penguins crossing that beach for longer. And when we have the high tide, usually they just wash up onto the rocks at the edge of the ocean and onto the sand dunes, and then they just start wandering home. They don't even rest on our rocks. They're just eager to get back to their burrow. But when they've got a bit of a longer beach, I find, just through my own personal observations, they like to rest on those rocks for a little bit longer. Maybe they're huffing and puffing a bit too much, doing a bit of a quick waddle across the beach, regaining their composure, and then making their journey home once they feel a bit more rested. All right. Now, how are we going, Rachel? Do we have any questions?
We do have. We want to shout out to all Orchard Primary School, and we have a few questions from them as well. So the first one I'd like to ask you, Stephen, how fast can penguins swim underwater, please?
Ooh, great question. So we do have Old Orchard Primary School. I believe it's the year 3s who'll be watching us. They're here on camp. And they're wondering, how fast do penguins swim underwater? Which is just a fantastic question. Penguins are really good swimmers. They're much better swimmers than people are. They're born to live out on the ocean. They are seabirds, so they are excellent swimmers. Now, we like to say that penguins might swim 4 to 6 kilometers on average when they're around in the water, but they can get some quick sprints going on where they can go about 3 times that speed, maybe up to 12, almost 13 kilometers an hour when they're underwater. And some of the ways they get those really high speeds is that when a penguin is diving underwater, they are a bit like a ball, and let's say a soccer ball, that if you push a soccer ball underwater, it's going to shoot back up when you let it go. They got the power of air that just lifts them above the surface. And penguins are the same. They've got a bubble of air around their torso that helps them to keep positively buoyant. They float on the water. So if a penguin was to swim underwater and to stop swimming, it would come back to the surface. Now, if a penguin was to swim underwater and see a fish above them, they could flap their flippers really fast, swim through the water, and snatch it. And they get the bonus speed boost of being positively buoyant. So they can hit some really fast speeds when they need to catch their fish.
Thank you, Stephen. Really nice.
That was a great question. Yeah. But usually when we saw the penguins in our ephemeral pond that we used to have here a month ago, 2 months ago, you'd probably see them at their cruising speed going around 4 to 6 kilometers an hour. That's a very relaxing speed for a penguin to swim. I'm still waiting for the penguins. I haven't seen any just yet. But we get all of our answers to these questions thanks to our wonderful research department here on Phillip Island, here at the Penguin Parade on Phillip Island. Our research department actually started a long time ago. It started as the Penguin Study Group, which formed around 1968. And they really wanted to learn a bit about penguins because people kept asking us questions about our penguins. And the most common questions we used to get back in the 50s and 60s were, how long do penguins live for, and do they mate for life? And we wanted to study, at least be able to be sure to give the right answer when people asked us. We found out the answers to these questions quite early on, that penguins do not mate for life. They are what we call socially monogamous, meaning that when they're together for the breeding season, they will raise their babies together. Both mom and dad will raise their babies together, but they are sexually promiscuous, which means that dad might not be raising his own babies. But luckily for our penguins, or at least luckily for the females, there are no DNA tests. Dad will raise the kids as his own, and they will make sure they raise them to adulthood. But after a while, maybe after the breeding season, they might separate ways. Our penguins can spend a few years together. It's very common to see penguins spending a few years together, but eventually they will have what we call a divorce. They will separate, and the male gets to keep the burrow. The female, she decides she's fed up with the man. She'll find a better penguin in a better burrow somewhere else. And it's a very equitable splitting. No hard feelings. They just move on and eventually find a new partner for the next breeding season. So penguins do not mate for life. And average age of our penguins, which is the second question our researchers used to be asked all the time, is 7 years, give or take 7 years of age. Although our oldest penguin here was about 26 years old, so they can live quite a lot longer than an average of 7 that we get. So our researchers, they've been learning all sorts of new answers to new questions. What do we have down here? Is those penguins on those rocks down there? That looks like a few penguins. Yep. They're hiding in these rocks just down here a long ways away. They don't look like they're too keen on crossing this beach just yet, but we'll keep an eye on them, see if any of their friends decide to show up. You gotta be careful they don't get washed away by a big wave on those rocks. Now, you don't have to worry about penguins too much. They are very good swimmers, and being that they do float really well, even if they do get pushed around on the rocks too much, they're quite small. They shouldn't suffer any injuries, not on sea conditions like tonight. It's far too calm for these little waves to cause any threat to our penguins. On our bigger, stormier nights, it's very unlikely that we would see penguins hanging around on the rocks like this. They'd just be getting battered and bashed around too much. Penguins are a bit more sensible than that. All right, looks like they just jumped back into the water. We'll see if they come closer towards us. But yeah, I do appreciate getting all these wonderful questions. We got a good starting question from Old Orchard Primary School. Do we have another one from
Yeah,
them?
we do. We do have more.
Yeah, okay.
We've got Chris asking as well with the school, how fast do they walk
How fast do penguins
land,
walk
waddle.
on land?
or waddle?
They waddle on land or walk, it doesn't matter. We like to call them for what it is. It's a waddle across the land. They definitely waddle their way across the beach. And penguins are slow walkers. And I think my favorite description of how fast a penguin walks was done by one of our researchers here, or I think it's a research technical officer, is his title? I forget what his actual title. Ross came along on the live stream a while ago, and he said a penguin walks at the speed of like a slow wedding walk. If you're walking down the aisle, you take the one step, pause. It's a roughly 2 km/h walk. Very slow walk across the beach. So if any of you are notorious slow walkers, or you like to block the sidewalks wherever you live, you would probably get along with our penguins quite well. They are slow walkers themselves. Got a few penguins here on the beach in front of us. And of course, being that it is nature, we do have some penguins who are faster walkers than others. Same as there's people who are faster walkers than others. No real rhyme or reason to why some penguins prefer to walk quicker than others, except for when they're spooked and they're rushing back into the ocean. They're all pretty quick when they do that. They get back to the safety of water. Maybe they saw a predator overhead, or maybe they saw just a shadow that gave them a little bit of a fright. They're running back to the safety of the ocean. Little sooty oyster catcher. I believe that's a sooty oyster catcher right there. It's not really a threat to our penguins, but sometimes it's better to be safe than sorry. So who knows if this little sooty oyster catcher came along and startled our penguins back into the ocean. Love these sooty oyster catchers. You haven't seen too many around over the years. This one has been showing up on and off for the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I can't believe they'll be spending the whole night here on the beach. I'm sure they'll have an opportunity to wander elsewhere as well. They won't affect our penguins too much. Once the sun goes down, our penguins won't even pay any attention to that bird there. I'm keeping an eye out. Is that a raft of penguins? Oh, it's so hard to see. The water's a little bit choppier than usual. Yeah, that does look like a raft of penguins just out here at the breaking wave. I think the wave's just gone over them. Let's see if I can zoom in and catch them. Oh, maybe not. The always happens. Yep, there they are. Sometimes the wave buffets them around a little bit and I lose track of where they're going. They're right by that breaking water now. I'm sure our regular water watchers, you're very adept at spotting these rafts of penguins as well. So many of you have been tuning in night after night. It's fantastic to see so many familiar names every night. And a few of you are quite determined to ask us very tricky questions. You've been causing us to stretch our brains a little bit,
Like this
challenge
one.
our knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what's this one?
We've got one from Jessica, because we know that penguins are not monogamous now. How do they get divorced?
How do they get a divorce?
Yes.
Right, so it's just a lady's choice for our penguins. So the male is the one who builds the burrow. Oh, there's a lovely group of penguins just down here. So the male's, he builds the burrow. His job is to attract a female into his burrow. And he'll have to do that after the breeding season and at the start of the next breeding season. If he wants to keep the female, he has to put on a bit of a show, make sure he proves his worth to the female. And the female, she gets to choose. Eventually, at one point, she might decide to just stop coming back to that burrow, and the male will try to impress somebody else. But if they've been together previously, they'll likely stay together if they've had good success in the previous breeding season. So they always have 2 eggs every time they lay eggs. And if her husband has been a really good dad and he's managed to raise both of those chicks up to adulthood, there's a good chance that she's going to stick around next year. He's pretty good value. But if they're trying to have some chicks and maybe the husband just wanders off while he's incubating the eggs and the eggs don't even hatch, well, that's not very good value, is it? It's not a very reliable husband. Or maybe the babies get predated upon, which does happen in nature. Sometimes it's unfortunate. Sometimes the husband's not as good as he could be. Sometimes even the mother is not as good as she could be. But it is the lady's choice. And if she doesn't feel like her partner is going to be a good candidate at raising her offspring, she'll find somebody else. The husband, pretty happy to take his female partner back year after year. The males are not too picky. They'll gladly accept any female who's willing to have them. Lovely. So we got this group that's probably going to be crossing this beach. I'll pause the camera right here and give everybody a chance to have a guess as to how many penguins are in this first waddle that's crossing the beach. I did hear over the radio Paul called out how many he thought were in this first group. Now what our penguins counters do is when they first cross the beach, they sometimes get an estimate as to how many penguins are in the group, and then they wait until they've definitely crossed halfway across the beach. These ones definitely did not wait till they crossed halfway across the beach, because you don't want to get an exact number in case they all run back again into the ocean and you have to recount them. So you'd look at a group of that size and you'd say, oh, maybe there's 40 in that group, which is what Paul just did. He said there's roughly 40 in that group. And then as they get closer to the sand dunes, he would recount them and get an exact number, a more exact number. So when we send you through our penguin counts for each group, sometimes we get an exact number. Other times it's more of that first estimate, and the penguin counter's too busy counting another group elsewhere. They don't have the ability to send us through the exact numbers, because it's not just the penguins coming out in this one area of the beach. There's about 4 pathways, really 4.5 pathways that our penguins like to use. So poor Paul, he's counting our penguins tonight. He's going to have to look all across the beach and make sure he gets them all. And while we're waiting for this group, any more questions tonight, Rachel?
Yeah, crafting with Lodi was asking how long does it take for penguins' eggs to hatch?
How long does it take for a penguin's eggs to hatch? So they always have 2 eggs, and I'll start off, I will answer that, but I'm going to start off a little bit before that. So the mother, she'll feel that she's got an egg getting ready to be laid. Soon she'll become, usually they become a shell gritter. They come down to the beach and peck at the sand to get the shell grit out of the sand to replace their calcium deficiencies. And when she goes back to the burrow, she'll lay that first egg. And then the second egg takes a single day. She'll start to develop that second egg after the first egg has been laid. It just takes a single day to lay the second egg, to completely develop it. Whereas that first egg takes, 2.5 weeks, roughly, to develop. So she'll lay both the eggs, which means the eggs should hatch within a day of each other, give or take, of course. So once it takes 30 35 days roughly to incubate the eggs before they hatch. It does depend because, as I said, sometimes mom or dad may leave their eggs unattended in their burrow. Maybe mom's sitting on the eggs and dad's been out on the ocean for 4 days and he's starting to feel, sorry, she's sitting on the eggs at home. She's starting to get very hungry, waiting for dad to come home, and he's nowhere to be found. He's not having any luck catching fish on the ocean. And so she might take off because she needs to eat something before she starves herself. They're not going to sacrifice their own life, especially because our penguins, they can leave their eggs unattended for several days at a time sometimes, and they'll still hatch. So it doesn't matter. Well, it's not the end of the world for the eggs if mom or dad leave them alone for a little bit of time. They can still hatch, which means that if there's no parents incubating them for a few days at a time, it'll just add on to the total time they need to hatch. So we say roughly 35 days, very roughly being nature. There's no exact number that we can give you that's right for every penguin, because sometimes it takes our penguins 40 days to hatch them. That was a great question.
Thank you, Stephen. That's a really great answer.
Yeah, I love all these questions because when we do have an answer, there's being that there's nature, it's never a really exact answer. Nature's funny like that. No penguins are the same, just as no two people are the same. So there's always a bit of an explanation to say why we have the answer we do and how it's not exactly accurate.
We've got to start at East tonight.
Oh,
Very
so
special.
we did have a start tonight. Thanks, Rachel. So we have a start. It's not at this beach right here. Well, this beach here it is. It's not at this part of the beach. It's on the farthest pathway away where our ranger was on that far stand who's going to be counting that one. So they crossed all the way down there first. We would have had to start here at the start if this group decided not to run back into the ocean. But they got frightened, maybe by that sooty oyster catcher. But it looks like they're getting ready to come out now. Fantastic. What a good view this is. They're just scrambling over their rocks, waddling their way across the beach. They use the rocks as a bit of camouflage. Their dark feathers on the back are really good at blending in with these rocks. Not so good at blending in when they're on the sand. Those dark rocks, those dark feathers against the yellow sand, the lighter colored sand, doesn't offer any camouflage to our penguins. I'll see if Paul gives us a different estimate for how many penguins cross this pathway. He might be a bit busy tonight, so if not, it'd be roughly 40 again. I don't think there's too many penguins that have joined this group. Sometimes you'll get 40 penguins come out of the beach like this one did. They run back, and then an extra 100 will have joined them. And so the poor penguin counter has to completely recount everything. Hopefully Paul wasn't too eager. Hopefully he didn't write down his number before they ran back. There's nothing more frustrating for a penguin counter to have to completely cross out a number they've just counted and start over again. Here they come. So our penguin count started actually with our penguin study group back in the 1968. And they counted how many penguins. Oh yeah, so Paul just called a number out. But started in 1968, we started counting the penguins. Back then we just had the one ranger sitting where Paul would roughly be sitting, outside in the elements, counting penguins with a pair of binoculars. I think Paul said there's a nice big group coming out. There they are. Got another lovely group. A little bit bigger this group than the first one. And yeah, we've been counting our penguins since 1968. This is the largest data set on little penguins anywhere in the world. There's a lot of information we get from our numbers. We notice the trends over time. We can see if the numbers are increasing or decreasing year after year. And our researchers do use this as valuable data for them. And being that we do want to keep our science the same, we don't use any technology to count our penguins beyond binoculars and pen and paper. People often ask us, why don't you use, lasers or more computerized ways of counting the penguins to get a more accurate count? And we could, but it's not really good science to change the way you do the science. It's not good to change your methodology. So we've been counting our penguins this way for 50 years or so. And if we were to suddenly start using computers, it would change the way we count our penguins, and it means we couldn't compare the two numbers anymore. Because with humans, there is a little bit of error involved. And that error we have counted for in our research. We are ready to, we know how much of an error we roughly have, but with a computer, we might not get any errors. Oh, we got our first penguins on the highway. Let's swap over to them. We'll see if we can get these guys coming out. Oh, a little bit frightened. Them checking themselves out in the reflections. Oh, trying to give himself a kiss there. Wonder if there's something up on the hillside that gives them a little spook. Yeah, Cape Barren goose. Cheeky goose, scaring our penguins. And if they're sensible penguins, they will have ran on this way. Looks like they're gone. They don't want to hang around for that goose. All right, let's swap back to the beach. We'll see if that goose causes any havoc for our penguins. So don't worry that the Cape Barren goose are, they're not a predator for our little penguins, but they are a large bird. And our penguins are naturally frightened of large birds. That goose is just up on the hillside. He's behind that top right corner screen where you can see the beach. Not scaring our penguins anymore. Love watching these guys just waddle past this camera. It's my favorite view. Wow, look at them go. And they're off on their journey home. I've been talking about our researchers a bit tonight because I feel like they do deserve a shout out, because a lot of the money we do make from the sales of ticket, a lot of it does go back into our research department, and they help us figure out ways that we can look after our penguins a bit better. They help teach us what they need and what we need to do to protect them. And sometimes our researchers, they get some interesting studies happening. So back in the I think it might have been the 1960s, we were curious about quite a few things because we didn't know much about penguins back then. So this was back in our infancy of studying penguins. We wanted to know, is it just the males coming home or is it just the females coming home? And we needed a way to mark our penguins to be able to tell which ones were coming out. And today we use microchips. Very easy to use a microchip. Put it quickly under their skin. You can scan them. We know who they are. We get their gender, their date of birth, their entire medical history record that they have with us. But back in the 1960s, we couldn't even put flipper bands on our penguins. We used to use that up until about 2000, maybe 2002. We used to put flipper bands on their right flippers, tell us who they are, their date of birth, all that important information. But back in the 1960s, our researchers, our penguin study group, I should say, decided to spray paint our penguins. And I think that's absolutely hilarious, just going around spray painting penguins. And they wanted to know if it was boys or girls coming out. So this is the 1960s, mind you, so a little bit different back then. So what they did was, for the ladies, they'd measure their bill depth so they'd know if it was a boy or a girl, and then they'd spray paint them. For the ladies, they would spray paint a pink band across their chest, a bit of a bikini band around their chest. And for the gentleman penguins, they would give them a blue, bit of a jockstrap blue down at the bottom, so they could easily tell if they were a boy or a girl coming out of the ocean at night. So not all of our science has always been very sophisticated. Hasn't always been great for our penguins. It's not something we do anymore. I don't think we'd ever spray paint our penguins in this day and age. But there's always interesting studies happening here at the Penguin Parade, and they keep teaching us new things about penguins.
And do you remember in 1991 when we had that oil spill that affected a lot of our penguins, and researchers actually created something really beneficial for the wild animal?
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, so that is another lovely story we have. Oh, well, lovely story. So a while ago we had an oil spill off Phillip Island where I think 430 odd penguins, I can't remember the exact number, but quite a few penguins were covered in oil in this oil spill. And what happened was early in the morning, we had some surfers going out saying they saw an oil spill out in the ocean. They rang us up and let us know that there was oil out in the ocean. And so we started to mobilize. We called on lots of people, and we wanted to make sure that we could help save our penguins, because oil is really bad for penguins, like it is for any native animal, especially seabirds in the ocean. So we captured about 430 odd penguins, forget the exact number, forgive me. And we had to give them a soapy bath. And it's a very stressful thing for a wild animal to be taken into basically captivity and then to be dunked into soapy water and scrubbed. And it's not just one scrubbing that you can give our penguins, it's several scrubbings that you have to do. I think some of our penguins have to be washed up to 7 times, and they need to rest in between each one because it was really harsh on their feathers. So you'd put them in the bath, scrub, 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 scrub. The penguins were not enjoying that. Put them to rest. On average, our penguins spent about a month in our wildlife clinic. Well, it was before our wildlife clinic. They spent a month with us, unable to escape until they were safe to return back to nature. And we thought, that's awful. I'm sure you've seen news stories about oil spills. You know how awful they are for the environment. So what our research department did was they invented something here at the Penguin Parade. Dr. Peter Danner is our head researcher here. He's been with us, well, I think 40 years now. He's been with us a long time. And he's really passionate about trying to find a better way of de-oiling a penguin. So he invented a magic wand. And that's what we love to call it. It sounds a little strange, a little Harry Potter, but it really is a bit of a magic wand, because what we do is we get a penguin who's covered with oil. We put a little jumper like this on them, because when a penguin comes back to land, they'll use their beaks to try and clean themselves and preen their feathers, which is really bad because they end up swallowing the oil. Very dangerous for them to do that. Very life-threatening if they do. So we put the jumpers on them, and what we do is when we're ready to clean them, we will sprinkle our penguins with a magic powder. And magic powder will sit onto it, make sure you get it in all the oily patches so the magic powder covers all that oil. We wave a magic wand and the oil comes off our penguins. Now, that is really what happens, except take out the magic, a bit more scientific for you at home. We sprinkle our penguins with an iron oxide powder, which absorbs the oil, and it just gets off their feathers, ends up on the oil, and being that iron is a magnetic metal, with that powder, we use a magnetic wand, and we wave that magnetic wand, a powerful earth magnet, and it sucks up all the iron shavings off our penguin's feathers, and the oil comes off with it. So we haven't actually done this on a live penguin yet. We've only been able to do it on taxidermies. We haven't had an oil spill recently, which is really good for us, but it does mean we have no field tests yet. But we got to use it on taxidermies, and it's a bit interesting because back when we first started doing it, we didn't know how strong of an earth magnet we should use. And the first taxidermy, one of the first taxidermies we used, our earth magnet was a little too powerful because it started yanking off the penguin feathers, which we didn't want to do to a live penguin. So we've refined it a little bit more. We found what we think to be the right strength of earth magnet to help get the oil off our penguins without disrupting their feathers too much. But we just need to wait for a field test before we can release that to the world. That's something that we don't want to keep here at the Penguin Parade and hog it for ourselves. We'd love to share this with the world and help other animals, seabirds in the world. But it does really depend on when we can get a field test. It's a bit tricky. All right, Rachel has just said we've got 5 minutes left in the count. I'm expecting another big group to show up before we're done, because we had really 2 decent-sized groups. So I'm just going to check the beach. Some nights we get a busy night, some nights we get a quiet night. There's sometimes no rhyme or reason to it.
What will the baby do? If the parents don't come home, let's say tonight, to just not coming home, what will the babies do? What will they be okay?
Depends how old the babies are. So Rachel asked how what the babies do when mom and dad don't come home. Well, if mom doesn't come home and dad's still coming home, if the babies are old enough, there's definitely a chance that dad can take them up that last little bit to make sure they have enough food to fledge and leave for the ocean. But if it's early on in their lives, nothing good's going to happen. One parent alone is not enough to raise 2 chicks. That's a little too difficult. But I'd say if both parents, maybe they pass away, maybe they just decide to stop coming home, which does happen for penguins. If the babies are old enough and they're getting ready to fledge, they'll eventually try to head out on the ocean on their own. And if that's not the case, if they're too young, they enter the food chain. It's a valuable source of food for lots of other native animals that we have here on Phillip Island. And while nobody likes to think about that too much, it is part of nature, and it's a very important part of nature. We don't want the other species of animals to suffer, so we don't take our abandoned babies, we don't take them to our wildlife clinic. We cause more harm to the overall ecosystem than we would if we just leave them be. Sometimes it is, we like to say, sometimes it is cruel to be kind. Because we are soft-hearted people, being that we love working with penguins, and I'm sure if we offered up a program where rangers could take baby penguins home to raise them as our own, we would. I can imagine many of us would say no to that. But it is the bad thing to do. It's as nice as it is for us, it's cruel to the ecosystem as a whole. It is unethical, would be the right way of putting that one.
Thank you, Stephen.
No worries. So Rachel's been asking some really good questions tonight. Sometimes they don't always have a happy answer, but they are valuable, very important to know these things. How about any more questions? Got any more for me?
How do penguins choose Phillip Island? How do they find their nesting spot here on Phillip Island?
That's a couple of questions there. So maybe why do they choose Phillip Island? They usually choose Phillip Island because they're born here. Penguins are born to their parents on Phillip Island. They grow up in that burrow. When they fledge for the first time and they go into the ocean, they almost memorize that pathway because they tend to live in a similar area as their parents did. Most of our penguins, anyways. They don't like to move too much. They prefer the familiar, our penguins. So they'll choose basically roughly an area nearby where their parents live. There's obviously some distance between them, but it might only be 100 meters, maybe a little bit farther if they're not finding any vacant properties nearby. But not many of our penguins, a few penguins, they do move to an entirely new colony. So sometimes, I think it's, what's the number? Maybe 1 in 500 penguins might move to an entirely new colony. And I like to make the comparison of people. Most people are born into a country. Most people live in that country their whole lives. But a few people, like myself, they do emigrate. So myself and Rachel, we both grew up in different countries and we moved to Australia. We decided to call this country our home. And that happens for our penguins too. Some of our penguins have ended up in St. Kilda, a penguin colony near Melbourne, or in Melbourne. Some of our penguins have ended up in other penguin colonies, maybe in Tasmania, a bit farther west. And some of those penguins from the other colonies have come to Phillip Island. So there is a bit of movement around, a bit of spreading of the genetic diversity. But yeah, they choose to live here on Phillip Island because it's one of the best places in the world for a little penguin. This beautiful body of water we have out in front of us. I'll try and zoom in and give a bit of a shot. Ooh, that's a big group. All right, I knew I was waiting for a big group. But that beautiful body of water you had a quick glimpse of is the Bass Strait, a very fertile body of water, lots of fish, lots of food for our penguins, which means that this is an ideal place to live. We've given this bit of Phillip Island as a safe sanctuary to our penguins, so they're not going to find a safer place anywhere in Australia. And they're free to choose to live here, they're free to leave. If they so desire, they could move to another colony, which they do from time to time, but we find lots of penguins like to move to our colonies. We say it's the best place in the world to be a little penguin. Oh, fantastic questions. I love getting the really good questions asked, especially ones that let me share a bit of interesting background knowledge for our penguins.
Like we're still doing a lot of fox monitoring work on Phillip Island as well, even though we're fox free for 7 years now, Stephen, or 8? About 8 years, I think.
For being fox free?
Yeah.
Something around that time, yeah. I'm gonna have to look up those dates. As dates are always a tricky one for me, but we've been fox free on Phillip Island for, let's say, several years now. And we still have our sniffer dogs who are monitoring for any potential fox reinvasion. So we got a bit of a shell gritter and a little wattle coming up the pathway. So our penguins are protected from foxes. We are fox free. We started up our fox monitoring program. I'm just going to focus on this shell gritter, see what they keep doing. This is a future mother right here. She'll be laying her eggs in the near future. We started up our fox program to get rid of all the foxes on Phillip Island back in I think it was the 90s. And it started in with daubing a fox number where people would call if they saw a fox and our rangers would go out and try and catch them. But foxes are really clever animals. It took a lot of tricks and a lot of different methods of capturing the foxes, getting rid of the foxes. So we use bait traps, we use sniffer dogs, we use motion cameras, we use spotlighting, tons of tricks, and we combined all of these tricks to catch all of the foxes. We finally got rid of the last fox several years ago, and we keep our sniffer dogs around because if you've ever been to Phillip Island, there's the one bridge to get onto the island, and that is the perfect way for a fox to get back onto Phillip Island. So we have a motion camera on our bridge, and we also have sniffer dogs that monitor this side of the bridge as well as the other side as well, just to make sure we don't get re-invaded by foxes, because one single fox can kill 40 penguins in a night, which is just really bad for obvious reasons. And they're not a native species, so an invasive species that causes so much trouble is not something we want to have here on Phillip Island. We want to keep this island a sanctuary for all of our wonderful natural Australian species that we have here. All right, fantastic. I'm a bit like Jordan tonight. I said there's 5 minutes left and I keep chatting away non-stop. Some of us, we love to talk about penguins so much, it's hard to get us to stop.
Yeah, remember to go into our website, look for updates and events, and also Penguin Foundation as well.
That's right. So if you wanted to help our little penguins, help our fox program, where we keep the foxes away from our lovely penguins and our eastern barred bandicoots, you can go onto our Penguin Foundation. You can adopt not just a penguin, you can adopt any animal. You can adopt an eastern barred bandicoot. You're not allowed to adopt a fox. I'm sorry, we don't allow that. But there are lovely native species that you can adopt through our website. And there is also a link, I believe, on Facebook that has our online shop, where if you wanted to buy some sort of merchandise for Christmas, you still have a chance to do that. I believe December 12th is our cutoff for mailing it out before the Christmas holidays. So all of those profits we make from donations or from sales, it all ends up going back into our wildlife conservation programs of protecting our penguins, protecting our eastern barred bandicoots, and Cape Ann geese, and all the other lovely animals that we have here on the island. All right, it might be time for us to wind down. We finally got that big, massive group in. I don't see any more. A small group in the distance on the left, but it looks like the vast majority of our penguins came in that last big group. Those kind of two groups that split. But these penguins are going on their journey home, so it might be time for us to also head home as well. I do want to say a big thank you for tuning in tonight. I hope you had a great show with Sky and Coco and Rachel early on in the beginning, and I hope you've enjoyed watching our penguins coming home. I do have plenty more research stories to tell, so tune in tomorrow night. I'll be on again. I might share another interesting research story I didn't manage to get to tonight, because there's some silly ones, there's some funny ones, and there's some ones that are quite impressive. But thank you again for tuning in, and have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.